Civil Service Commission, Salary Commission. There's all kind. What else do we have? Mr. Kelly, Officer Kelly, sorry, Mr. Kelly, Officer Kelly, welcome. There's a number of volunteer positions within the city, and we appreciate everything that you do for us every single month, because we couldn't do it without you. The work is being done at your level and then brought up to City Council for consideration. So we appreciate all that you do. And more importantly, we appreciate you being here this night to help us celebrate. And we're going to pass one off to the side here since he's not here. And we'll just get right into it. So I have one presentation this evening. This open. I was trying to hide it, so it's important. All right. So we're here this evening to recognize Reserve Police Officer Rudy. Hope I don't say this wrong.
It won't be wrong.
Padhora. Did I get it right? Was I close? Padhora. See, I get nervous and then I can't remember anything. I can't remember how to say anything. So we're here to recognize you as our Volunteer of the Year, and we appreciate everything that you do for us on a daily basis. We're glad to see you back in your uniform. I don't know if your wife is or not, but we sure are. I know on the hallway she said it was too soon, but we appreciate your time and efforts and knowledge and subject matter expertness that you bring to the city and partner with our officers to make our city safer. So we appreciate that. Rudy was born in Vancouver, and at 10 years old, his family moved to Lavaca, Texas, and graduated from Port Lavaca High in 1974. At the age of 19, Rudy came back to Vancouver and has lived there ever since. In 1980, Rudy met his future wife, Christy, who he would marry in 1986. They currently live in Vancouver, Washington, in the house Rudy's great-grandfather built in 1901. In the summer of 1986, Rudy joined the U.S. Army at the age of 30. After his service in the U.S. Army, Rudy joined the Oregon National Guard. Rudy retired as a Sergeant First Class in 2006 with over 20 years of service. Let's give him a round of applause for that. Absolutely. After serving full-time in the U.S. Army, Rudy went to work with the Washington State Department of Corrections at Larch Mountain Correctional Center. At Larch Mountain, Rudy supervised up to 13 inmates who performed welding and repair work on heavy equipment. Rudy retired after 31 years at Larch Corrections Center. If working at Larch Mountain wasn't exciting enough, Rudy ventured out and started his own logging company on his days off as a means of terrifying Christy. Christy kept a close eye on him by running the log skidder. Wow, good job. Well done. Rudy and Christy joined a Masonic Jewish synagogue where Rudy became close friends with the ex-Secret Service officer who headed the synagogue security team. Rudy later assumed the role of leading the security team and developing a standard operations manual for the team to follow. Since that time, he has grown the security team to 9 members and had the synagogue invest in a security system with cameras. If all of this wasn't enough, Rudy and Christy purchased a 120-acre ranch in Centerville, Washington, where they haul half of the alfalfa bales to the farm in Vancouver to sell to local horse and cattle owners. Aren't you tired? Why aren't you tired? Goodness sakes. In 2009, Rudy was hired as a reserve deputy with the Clark County Sheriff's Office. In 2011, Rudy was hired as a reserve officer with Woodland Police Department. Rudy told Christy he felt he had come home. In December of 2011, Rudy had an anagram, is that right? Angiogram, thank you, and was diagnosed with a heart vessel birth anomaly. The cardiologist told us Rudy could have dropped dead on the way to the barn. He was immediately admitted to the cardiac ICU and had open heart surgery 2 days later. He set the record for being the shortest stay post-heart surgery patient, being discharged in 4 days. Rudy wanted to get back to work. But with all the hats Rudy has worn in his life, he is happiest and most fulfilled working with his Woodland Police Department family. He feels he can be of use to his fellow officers. And as Rudy has explained to Christy, his family immigrated here in 1899 from Czechoslovakia, and he is in debt to this country for the opportunities and blessings it has provided. Rudy would like to thank his sister-in-law and her husband, a retired detective from Westland Police Department, Oregon, for being here on this important day. He would like to also thank, most of all, his wife of 34 years, Christy, who has supported him throughout his countless years of public service. Congratulations. Join me up here for a photo. step right forward. Where's the camera? Make one right back there, okay? I have to check this, go. All right.
One more.
You want one more? Okay. Certificate of Recognition, Volunteer of the Year, awarded to Rudy Fedora for the dedicated service to the city and citizens of Woodland, presented by the City of Woodland on this 18th day of February, 2020. Thank you very much, and I can't thank you very much. Okay? Thank you. All right. There you go.
On the way up here, I was thinking about, in 1980, I was working on log trucks here. This very spot in Woodland, and Woodland's been a very special place for me. And you've heard the expression, save the best for last, and for sure, working with the Woodland Police Department, everyone here has been so great to work with. The staff here, all the officers are fantastic people, and Woodland is very blessed to have such a great police department. I'm very, very honored to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Don't look at me like that. So I'll embarrass you in front of all these people. Chief.
Hey, photos.
You want to join us, boss?
Yeah, I'm
Come on, man.
Robert, it doesn't matter.
Robbie, you're on duty. No, there's not. Don't let it get worse.
Any opportunity I get to embarrass my department, I love it. Hey, Robert. Come on over there. Come on back. Come on back. I don't want to do your hands.
Why am I in front? I thought everybody over 6 foot needs to be standing for that.
You look good. Back one, Terry. We'll scoot over. You look good. You look good. Terry, back up. See how I did that? Look at you.
All right, don't move.
It hurts to smile.
Where's the family? Where are you? Yeah.
She's up front.
Where? Come on. Come on. Christy.
Christy. Just like Randy's right here. Found him.
Good in. Don't be scared.
Don't touch it here. It's kind of honest. Don't touch it.
All right. I'll leave you alone now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chief.
Here, I'll give you this back too. All right, thanks again, everybody. Make sure you have some snacks. Appreciate you being here. Now's your opportunity to try and catch me before I run out the door, because I know somebody wants to tell me something, right? You want to complain? Somebody does. I can feel it. All right. Drive safe, everybody. Where's Darlene? What do you got? Good job. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sophia. Don't forget about Sophia.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm staying. We get Gina tonight. All right.
How exciting is that?
So exciting.
It is, terribly.
I'm sure Mary's probably jealous. I know she is. I know she is. The 10. Did I get it right? I'm going to write it down right now.
Your appointment's at 11:30,
Okay.
and I'll just register. Why are you being so good?
What's that?
Why are you so good?
Because I had dinner earlier.
And that's on me.
How your boys doing?
Okay.
What you know about? What you know about. Good.
Event center, got it.
My one son, football, starting baseball, track.
I'll send you an email.
The other one is kind of out of
Thank you.
behavioral school, so he's had 2 weeks of above 80 scores.
What's up?
He's got 30 days in,
And how old are they?
17 and 8. So one's 5.
Good.
So my goal is to get him out of school in grade school, then he'll be able to.
Be here every other day that she
A lot of people don't want to adopt kids here, so that's my job. And then that'll be the last one. And I'm going to retire. Good. Did you hear that, Pete?
I'm not retiring. I hear what I want.
Okay, well, you heard it. That's my goal.
Hey, was there cookies and how many did you have?
There was no cookies.
Hey,
There were no cookies. I
I'm
didn't have
almost
any.
into my skinny pants.
Oh, dude.
I'm almost there.
Oh, I'll beat you.
I had them on, and then I had to take them off because I couldn't breathe. I'm almost there.
It's progress.
I just bought one.
As long as they make them, right?
I haven't had a cookie in a month.
No cookies.
Oh my God. No, I'm gonna sit in the corner and hide and eat.
I would be a very good German.
They are
I
not.
like those kind of meats and cheeses. They eat a lot of that for. They eat gold in their market.
Add the beer and all set.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
I'll let you.
And then they have good public transportation system on the drive. See?
Wow.
I would make it really Italian. Yes, I don't want to. I'm not a big bread fan. I like meats and cheeses and stuff like that.
I agree with you. I'm not big on that.
Yeah, me neither.
Rather have beer.
I'd rather have beer.
Yeah.
Call them perpetuate. People drink a lot of wine. That's the nickname.
What's your favorite beer?
Don't laugh. I like chocolate top.
Don't you say Budweiser?
No. You're like, no, that's my favorite. No, I like chocolate top. I like them with a lot of citrus flavor. Of course, everyone likes Corona. Most people do. It's pretty well. Chocolate top is good because it has like it has orange, but it has like pulp, like a pulp substance in it. And then there's one that's called swell. Is that what big sloth is? Swell. Swill. It's called Swill. It's awesome. It's a great. Have you had that? It's good. I like it. I like just a lot of citrus flavor, but I like it where it's not through. It has, it's kind of murky. It's not something weird.
The same goes.
Must be my farm racist.
I like the stout.
It's just out. Yeah.
It's also been the same government.
My favorite is
Fixes the
it's a
environment.
half and half of black and tan, where it's
Oh, black and tan.
amber and the stout.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Well, that's kind of like people who like the shot with just the foam. They like the cappuccino, or they like it with the cream, or they like it, not that. I take the stout as a people like their cappuccino or pretty much because you're just drinking that shot.
Something with body to it. Yeah, absolutely.
I had to ask.
A lot of my friends like it. Oh, see, I don't like bitter. Yeah. Well, maybe because of that bitter taste. You know how they say taste buds, everybody's taste buds change? You know, I taste buds change their whole life. I didn't even know I wasn't.
You are now. Now you have to stay.
Child.
Real Canadian money they have.
Zippy Jacks is
Mrs. Miller, how are you? I didn't know you were coming. We're about to take it. Sorry, I apologize.
You know what?
Ah, great. Did you get a little snack out there?
No.
No? Was it part? You missed the
Real
festival.
Canadian money that they use in the toy tail.
Teething baby, man.
I was like, that's what Americans say.
I know, me too.
I had to wait for Dad to get home to pass. I can always stop. But,
We're like twins.
oh,
Go get the sheets here.
Do you have any idea how long it's going to be? 45 minutes? Say 30 minutes and then we know it? Yeah. So, did it get less cooperative or more cooperative? There you go. Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Good evening, oh, is this on? How about now? Is it on? Are we there? There we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It is Tuesday, February 18, 2020. It is 7 p.m. This is a regular meeting for the City Council of Woodland. If I could please get everyone to silence your cell phones and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Here.
Councilmember Rounds. Councilmember Plaza.
Here.
Councilmember Holland.
Present.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Chapman.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here. Councilmember Rounds has called off this evening for annual leave. Chair will accept a motion to excuse Mrs. Rounds.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
All right, Mrs. Rounds has been excused. Moving on to presentations and proclamations this evening. Earlier, I think everybody was here for the most part, but we recognize our Reserve Officer, Rudy Fedora, for Volunteer of the Year. So it was wonderful. Thank you again to the Clerk Treasurer's Office for arranging all the goodies and everything out there. And thank you, Chief, for arranging for your officers to be here this evening. I know that Detective Casey was extremely excited and moved emotionally, I could tell, by the uniform he was wearing tonight.
It was really the photos that moved everybody.
Yes, and thank you for helping me in assisting on making that happen. I'm sure that they're extremely pleased with both of us right now.
Of course.
I expect thank you notes.
I'll hear about it tomorrow.
Oh, Christmas card. All right, thank you. Moving on to citizen communications for items not on the agenda, we have Holly Norris.
Not on the agenda is first?
Not on the agenda is first. I'll have you state your name and address, and then I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay, good evening. I'm Holly Norris. I reside at 181 Marty Loop. So, as far as what's not on the agenda this evening, just to throw a couple things out there, I had a few questions. I haven't been able to locate the budget on the county website I've gone intermittently for the last 3 months, and it says coming soon. So I was just wondering if it was up yet and where it is.
You mean on the city website?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we are putting some final touches on it for the 2020 budget, and it should be uploaded soon.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Let's see. So, are we still no longer able to search for parcels on the assessor's website?
No, you still should be able. I just did it last week.
Okay, great. Thank you so
You're
much.
able to do it, yeah. Through Cowlitz County.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cowlitz County. Thank you. Water. Are you guys testing the water? Are you guys testing the drinking water? Are you testing the sewage treated water?
Yes.
Mainly the drinking water is really what,
Right.
what's pumped into the home is what I care about.
Absolutely. That is something that's ongoing. It's something that is conformed to the Department of Health, and that's something that we are within our boundaries in our box.
Well, actually, you're not. You've been out of compliance, and it states it below the water statements. There actually is no water data, absolutely no water data whatsoever. I think the last time there was a testing was 2004, but it didn't even show any allotted actions, so.
Okay, when we're done here, I'll clarify.
That would be
during the open
wonderful.
meeting.
I
Okay.
appreciate that. And then this is new, but before we get into the stuff that is on the agenda, so if going forward on some new piping, has the old piping been replaced yet? The 1970 lead piping that.
We can address that during open.
Wonderful.
meeting as well.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's
You're
all for
looking
now on the
for
agenda.
maintenance and replacement.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha,
because, some newer ones were put on the agenda, so I figured I'd
Okay.
touch on the old ones first.
gotcha, okay.
All right.
That's it?
That's all for
Okay.
the what's not.
Well, stand right there.
Okay.
Is there anybody else for items not on the agenda that failed to sign up? All right, moving on to items on the agenda.
Hello.
You're back
Good
up
evening,
again.
you guys. Yes, hi.
We know who you are. I'm going to give you a reset your 5 minutes.
Yeah, I
Items
love
on the
Woodland.
agenda.
I love Woodland. I've been kind of an in and out resident for a year and a half trying to find housing. Okay, I'm a single mother. My kids live with their dad mainly because housing has been such a problem. I can't tell you what a problem it's been. But, job stability now and things are available, so we're just looking for opportunity now. When I read the proposal, first of all, it seems like it's very confusing. They were
What
kind
item
of,
are you referring to, just so we know?
sorry, the proposed community development plan by the county.
Oh, okay, is it on, do we
For
have
Woodland,
that?
it's for Lewis River Road, it was the...
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and then also the bottoms.
Okay.
And then there was another 4-acre parcel also on Lewis River Road. But
Okay.
when presented, it was presented to the community as they were in conjunction to one another. So it was very confusing, number one. So if they're not in conjunction, I think that needs to be said.
Okay.
But to me, it appeared that they were. And I guess the bottom line is I don't feel that you guys would put a subdivision in the bottoms, and I don't feel that you would put another RV park on the Lewis River Road. So the conclusion made sense, though. And so to me, that just, it didn't feel like it was a good thing at all for the people, especially in the community. And it certainly, in my opinion, would not conform to a fair attempt at diverse and affordable housing whatsoever. I mean, it was nice maybe, but if you're going to do that, that's great and good. Where's the budget for something that is, whether it's whatever it is, resources, but, there needs to be some kind of adjustment as far as the affordable housing goes. There's grants that can be pulled in. There's so many grants, for low-income stuff like that. So there's a lot of people in the community that have some really good ideas. So that's all.
Before you go, the subdivisions that you're speaking of, are they within the city limits or on the outskirts in the county?
Well, it said the subdivision would be at the bottom, which
Okay.
would be south and out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll address that as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else for items on the agenda? Mrs. Johnson?
For once, I won't take the 5 minutes. Darlene Johnson, P.O. Box.
Hold on a second. I need to take all this. Go.
I hope that on action item R, I hope that, which deals with the funding for the Chamber Information Center, I hope that's a yes vote, and that we can continue on with the job that we're doing there.
Okay.
See?
Holy smokes, that was less than 21 seconds because I delayed the stop. Wow. Congratulations, Mrs. Johnson. Perfect. Got you down here. Mr. Johnson, did you want to step forward?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. All right. Before moving on, we'll address some of the items that were just brought up during public testimony. Ms. Coleman, can you please address the out of compliance with water testing, please?
So we absolutely are not out of compliance with our water testing. If you go onto the city website under Public Works, and then you go under Water, and the Water Treatment Plan, there's a link for the Department of Health, and all of the reports for the Department of Health are in there. Also, the Consumer Rights to Know has been put on the bill, and we exceed our Department of Health and our EPA water requirement testing, and we've been exceeding it since 1999. The filtration plan began in 1999 for the city of Woodland. We use a chlorinated disinfection system. The monthly lab reports are in there on the website from January 2018 to February 2020, along with the annual water quality reports from 2010 to 2019 are all listed in the website. And our water system plan is in there, which tells what we do with our water plan and what we're doing in the next 5 years. So all of that is listed in there. We're required to report monthly, and we're required to test for the Department of Health. So all that's in there. If you need anything and you want copies of all this, I can give you my business card, and you can come to the office and we can print it out for you.
And in regards to the maintenance and pipe replacement,
So that is part of our rate study that we're doing. So when I say the rate study, I mean we maintain our pipes based on our rates that come in from our citizens. So we have a regular scheduled maintenance program that if we see fit, for instance, an example, let's talk about sewer right now. We just had lift station 6 fail, and as you know, we had an opportunity to fix the connection at our lift station number 6, and we had an opportunity to replace the first 10 feet that failed, or go back 100 feet to the next manhole. Thank you very much. And we chose to go 100 feet because the pipe was old. So that's part of our plan. We don't go out and tear up the roads until we actually have a failure. But at the same time, we do have a plan to, when, like for instance, we have the West Scott Avenue, we have a full depth reclamation road that's going to be going on right now. So our plan is to put a new water line in there, and we have an asbestos water line that's out there right now, so our plan is to replace it and put a new water line in there and put new sewer lines in when we do tear up our roads, so we don't have to put that money in later on and re-tear up the road after we've just done the roads. So that's where we use our maintenance dollars.
and similar to the issue we had over on Hoffman.
That's correct. So on Hoffman, when we were doing the sidewalks on Hoffman, we had some water lines, service lines that need to be replaced. So instead of replacing them just under the sidewalk, we went from the residence meter all the way out to the main lines. So that's where we use our maintenance dollars.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, moving on to items that were on the agenda. I think there might be some confusion on what the city has control of and what the county has control of. Currently, right now, there are multiple applications that are in at Cowlitz County that are out of control of the city. But what we're doing, those subdivisions are county planned through developers, so there's no financial gain to the city by having them out there, but there's also immediate impact to the city once those residents will be built. But again, this is a county issue. It's a city issue for us because of the impact and the potential impact it will have to us, and the non-financial component that comes with that to help us out with our transportation system. So we are currently working as a team here trying to address the concerns that we have as a city, which are some of the same concerns that you have brought up, meaning is it appropriate to build a large subdivision in the bottoms? I mean, that's our concern, is where the subdivision is going to go, how big is it going to go, and the impact it's going to be to the city. But we are working on that, and we will continue to monitor that as things progress. Mr. Goddard, can you add to that at all? Because I'm just rambling.
Sure. So in the packet that was available online, at the end of each section is a letter with the city letterhead, and that was our response to the county, advising them of the concerns we have. So what they're reviewing, we can only advise them what concerns we have. Whether or not they take those into their decision-making process is entirely up to the county. Yeah. So, but we've been consistently raising the same issues for probably a year and a half, and we are slowly making progress trying to get their attention. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We are to the portion of the agenda for approval.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second. Moved by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Yes, I will. Gotta get this.
Mrs. Anderson is very excited this evening.
Yeah. Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Grange.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
All right, agenda has been approved. We have no public hearings this evening. Reports of City Council. Mrs. Graham.
Well, I know, I may be a week late, but we went to the library fundraiser down at the Red Barn. We had a lot of fun and a good time, so they did a very nice job with that. And then I attended the Sweetheart Luncheon that the city did at the Friday for Valentine's Day down at the park. It was a park fundraiser, and that was a lot of fun, and the food was good.
All right. Mr. Fredericks.
I just want to thank staff for putting together the Exit 21 open house. Thank you. It was very well attended, and there was some work that went into that, so I appreciate that, Mr. Goddard.
Not me.
And team.
Team.
The snacks were a big hit.
What was that? Ordered those. That was all us.
That was your portion, she did the rest?
My city card.
Mr. Chapman?
Yeah, that's what Mr. Frederick did, was it went very well. I think we had positive influence both ways, and it was no yelling and screaming, had to call in a SWAT team or nothing, which was really good, because that's what I was worried about. Everybody talked and discussed different ideas, and the engineers were very open to all kind of ideas, and wrote down notes, so I thought it was a very good turnout. Hopefully we'll see what the final product is.
All right. Mr. Smith?
I attended the library event. It was a really fun event. Had a really good time at it. Also came to the
Open house.
The open house, sorry.
Wow.
Thank you.
What is going on?
And it was a very good turnout for that, and it looked like everybody was pretty receptive to both the options that were there. And I did miss the Love Your Parks event. Sorry.
We noticed.
Yeah.
Mr. Chapman, do you have something else to add?
Oh, yeah, I attended that, and the Love Your Parks was very filling. Very good barbecue, let me tell you, yes.
But they
Thank
were
you.
able to raise a lot of money.
Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Coleman. I think that was a very good thing. Hopefully we can do it again this summer or something. We'll get a little better weather and a better turnout. Let's push it forward.
That's good stuff. All right. Okay, seeing no one else. Finance and General Government, Mr. Fredericks.
Yes, we've already reported, but per council rules, it is on here again, asking for us to provide a report. So appreciate that, and I think we're fixing that tonight. We met on February 3rd, and our next meeting is scheduled for March 2nd at 5 o'clock. I think we're doing it a little early, possibly.
Okay.
Maybe.
Human
To be
Resources.
determined.
Human Resources.
Same thing. We reported during the last city council meeting, and so we'll be meeting next on March 2nd at 5:30, as long as it doesn't change between here and there.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
That's not what you said.
I know.
Reports of Advisory Committee, Chamber of Commerce. Mrs. Graham, did you want to kick this to Mrs. Miller this evening, or are you going to take the lead?
I wrote it.
Oh, Mrs. Graham, take off.
I had this discussion with her before.
Okay.
I didn't know she was coming for sure.
I know. All right.
Anyway, per usual, the chamber meets 12 o'clock every Tuesday at the Grange. It's a bring your own lunch type situation. For the next few weeks, we will still be having our legislative calls at the Visitor Center, and at 7, we kind of go over things. They call, whoever is on duty that day, calls at 7:30 to 8, and there's some, it's pretty good information, ask questions and keep up with things. Our big thing for right now is Thursday night from 5 to 7 at the Visitor Center. The Chamber is hosting an open house so that people can come and call whoever's on duty that
Sorry.
day. Okay, now we got to rush.
What's happening over there?
I don't know.
He's just watching YouTube videos.
Any questions?
Yeah. Anyway, we are having an open house Thursday
Gina, are you
night
with
from
us?
5 to 7.
Just wanted to hear it all.
How's the movie? Sorry, I apologize, Mrs. Graham. That was unprofessional of me. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's perfectly all right. We'll forgive you this time. No, open house. Come and meet all of our new board this year, existing board and new members to the board. Come and see what we have to offer for the Visitor Center and what the ladies do at the front desk as far as telling the visitors where to go and how much time it's going to take and so on and so forth. So they do a great job, but it's just people come in and see what we have. And then we're preparing for the next year activities and whatnot. First thing Monday morning, if you check your emails, Ms. Miller gives us our orders for the week and where we need to be at what time, and it works really well. If you are a chamber member and you are not getting those emails, please let us know, because we want to keep you informed. And if there's another entity, which I have one I need to make sure she gets, so that we can add you to the list so you get the information of what activities are going on. And also, if you have activities or events going on someplace, please get the information to us so that we can put it out to all the members and share on Facebook and wherever, so it's really good for that. So it's ongoing and moving and doing very well. She's keeping us on track very well.
I sure appreciate the emails with the list of events every Monday morning.
Yes.
Even on President's Day. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
So that's all for that, as far as I know now.
Questions for Mrs. Graham? All right, seeing none. Moving on to reports of city officers. Council retreat dates. Looking at April and asking council for conflicts at this point. Looking at Saturdays.
I'm open all April.
I don't have a conflict yet. As of
Okay.
now, it's open.
Okay.
I'm open.
Open. Mr. Chapman?
I'm out of town April at some point here. Let me look it up.
I'm pretty flexible.
Anyone traveling for Easter?
I'm out of town on the 11th and the 18th.
Okay. The 4th will not work for me. So we're looking at the 25th. Great. Date has been set. 25th it is. 25th of April.
4:25?
4:25. See how easy that was?
At what time?
TBD.
Okay.
Probably 9.
Here.
That's kind of early. Maybe 11ish.
early.
Yeah, so maybe 11ish. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be right around 9 o'clock or so.
6, get it done.
Yeah, no. We'll have some more details coming forward on that. I too was at the open house. Absolutely impressed with the community. Absolutely impressed with Mr. Goddard and his team. Thank you for putting that on. That is the biggest turnout I think I've seen at any event that we put on to inform the community on something that's happening in the city. So whatever you did, whatever the information that was sent out there, so the notice was there, very, very pleased with that. Spoke to people that were on the Clark County side that would be impacted by what we do at 21. Spoke with people on the Cowlitz County side in the bottoms and upriver, and then also our residents that showed up as well. So I believe it was very well messaged, and I hope that the information that was coming back from the comments was good. The only complaint, I shouldn't say complaint, the only concern that I have after speaking to some folks is that we had a trucking industry meeting that occurred. None of the changes that were brought up during that meeting seem to be reflected on the information that was presented. So I have some concerns with that we're not doing our due diligence to make sure that we're creating a product that all can use. So I'd like to put that on a list to discuss and make sure that we can go through that and address that. I have some major concerns with the Buckeye and Lake Shore that were brought to my attention with the roundabout. It seems awfully small, and it's going to be a challenge for some of our folks that are, some of our users. Yes.
I'd just like to bring up that the meetings were scheduled back-to-back as an open forum for the trucking industry and for the public. So we're looking at the comments and feedback at this time, and the trucking industry comments have not been worked into the results yet. This is both an open forum for the general public and for the trucking industry. So it was gathering data, and we haven't put all that information in yet. So that's the reason why, Mayor.
Okay.
We were concerned about having one set of information presented and then having it changed when you get to the meeting, so that what people saw beforehand and what was at the meeting being different. We were concerned about it creating conflict.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Also at the Fort Vancouver Regional Library, Love Your Library event at Peterson Barn. When was that? Was that last weekend already? What was today? That was the 8th. Jeez Louise, have we had a meeting since then? No. Okay. Make sure I'm not reporting the same stuff here. So that was awesome. It was nice to see city staff was there. Some of the executive staff members were there. Chief Kelly and his wife were there, which was nice. Miss Melissa Johnston out of Community Development, poor thing. I dumped her on some folks. They were chewing my ear, and I said, "Oh, Melissa, have you met Melissa?" And then I walked away. I feel bad, and I'm not over it yet. I feel kind of bad about it, but they were getting after me, and we were all trying to have a good time. Was not the time and place for that, so I appreciate her attending as well. Lunch down at the park was awesome. Thank you. How much money did we raise?
About 18, but then by the time you take it out, what did we figure out it was? 1,200 bucks, $1,200.
That's awesome.
All said and done. So we were able to purchase 15 yards of engineered wood chips that will be able to fill up our parks that were all our parks within the city that are depleted right now.
Good.
So those are maintenance dollars that we don't normally have.
Good.
So hopefully we'll get up to 30 yards of it if we can get some of it donated as well.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah.
I foresee another event this spring to, I don't know, buy something else. Maybe a swing, some garbage cans, I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, I know
recycle cans.
it's a portion of our budget that is non-existent, so thank you for being creative and trying to make that happen. Attended the Love Street Playhouse opening on Friday evening. I saw the Johnsons were there. There were a number of folks that were there. Wonderful play. If you can get a ticket, I encourage everyone to do that, but I understand that they're sold out, so you're going to have to roll somebody in the parking lot and steal theirs, or be a better friend to somebody to get in to see them. And also, what was that inappropriate? I didn't mean to. I'm just saying it's.
Encouraging criminal activity.
Where do you work?
Well, right now I'm working right here.
I said I could.
I'm working right here right now.
Okay.
What are we doing? And then also President's Day, although many had the day off in observance of this holiday, but I was up awfully early and driving to Portland for an interview with Coin 6 News, talking all things Woodland. I was very pleased with my ensemble choices because I coordinated with the host of the show. So thank you for all the comments out there on Facebook. It was wonderful that you noticed that I coordinated. It was not planned. I think is there other things I've done as well? That's all. I'll go. Mr. Boyce.
All right.
I've rambled enough.
Just a couple repeats. I too went to the Parks fundraiser, and I wanted to congratulate Melissa Johnston, who provided music.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
She's a bluegrass guitarist, and she was singing, and she had a couple folks with her.
It was awesome.
It was very good. So I think we have our entertainment for future meetings.
I will say I think the drawing was rigged. I'm going to put that on the record right now because I didn't win anything. The win from Mrs. Graham was given to me. That doesn't count. I'm just saying, but it was a delicious muffin. Oh, you didn't? Well, I ate it. Sorry, Mr. Boyce. I know. Not even a balloon.
And the open house we had on Exit 21, I was so happy to see the public there and so many city councilors and the mayor, of course. Moving on, the new trust business out in the industrial area is having a ribbon cutting on February 25th at 3:30 p.m. They're asking any city officials that can be there to be there. And I think they want someone to speak. So if anyone is available, please let me know.
What was the date again, Steve?
It's on February 25th at 3:30 p.m. It's at 1960 Sherman
I was just
Way.
saying, Monty, are you available that day? You are the mayor pro tem.
That's right, just checking. He's writing it down.
Yes, he's writing his speech now. Good for you. Way to be on top of things, Mr. Smith. Mr. Boyce, please continue.
All right, with that, on February 20th, this Thursday, we have the Planning Commission meeting in this room. Also on the 20th, the open house at the Chamber Visitor Center at 5 p.m. We have the public hearing regarding moratorium on storage units, 7 p.m. on March 2nd. So all those items are planned. That's what I have for this evening.
Questions for Mr. Boyce? All right, I would like to, do you have a question?
No, maybe he can be backup speaker.
He's really good
I
at
could.
it.
I'm just, they asked specifically for an elected official.
You have a can of something, speech somewhere.
Mine's available. I will
Dust it off.
definitely do it.
I would like to address a few things on the agenda this evening that I skipped over. Under consent items C and D, the appointments to the Park Board. Very pleased with these two appointments. Ms. Susan Humbird, who long-serving council member, is willing to step up and continue to serve the city, which I love. And Mr. James Keller, one who happens to be a sergeant with our Woodland Police Department, has stepped up to fill one of the positions as well, which is very exciting to me. We're getting some more involvement there. So he lives here in the city. He does a great job for us, and he wants to continue to give back, and I can't be more appreciative of that. We have had a number of folks apply. Just so council is aware, if you look down at action item Q, ordinance number 1455, amending Woodland Municipal Code to combine the Park Board and Horseshoe Lake Management Committee. First reading, this is an attempt to create one committee. We do have folks on the Park Board now that do have some historical knowledge of the lake, so we haven't lost that, but unfortunately we did not receive enough applications to create two committees. So I'm asking for a due pass on action item Q this evening, creating that one advisory committee on the Park Board to council. Also, I'd like to reference action item R, the hotel motel tax funding for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm asking that council also, along with Mrs. Johnson, approve this evening due to the fact that I hate to use the term, but all the boxes have been checked. The information that was set out there, the expectations by council, those have been met. They came to the table and they did everything that was asked of them. So I'm asking for a yes on action item R this evening to follow through on our portion of that, or your portion of that, I should say. Mr. Fredericks.
Clarifying question on R. R is indicating that the total cost is $55,000. Didn't we already make a half, approve a portion of this already, and this is the second half?
This is supposed to be the second half, yes.
And have we?
It is, so the total is supposed to be 55,000.
Okay, what did we already approve?
Half.
I believe 30, yeah.
Okay, so this isn't, so the cost of the item, we've already spent 30.
To be 25,000, equaling 55,000.
New math. I didn't even need to calculate. Thank you.
All right. Moving on to consent items. Chair will accept a motion for approval.
Move to approve consent items.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Chapman, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Will the clerk please take the votes?
We'll get there.
Pause your movie.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick?
Aye.
All right, consent items have passed. And Mrs. Anderson, I apologize in advance. That probably won't be the last time. I'm trying really hard not to. Moving on to action items. Action item P, ordinance number 1449, fourth quarter 2019 budget amendments, first and final reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1449, first and final reading.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Fredericks.
This is just truing up numbers for the fourth quarter, finalizing the budget for 2019. I reviewed this. I had no concerns with it, and we just need to get it done.
Councilmember Plaza.
No comment.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item P?
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Action item P has passed. Moving on to action item Q, ordinance number 1455, amending the municipal code to combine Park Board and Horseshoe Lake Management Committee. First reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1455, first reading.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
No discussion, but I have a question. Does this... This will fix it in the section to resolve what you're trying to do.
Right.
But I believe it is referenced in other areas.
We will make that look and bring back future changes.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yeah, I concur with this.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item Q, ordinance number 1455?
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Action item Q has passed. Moving on to action item R, authorize hotel motel tax funding for Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center for 2020 and authorize budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
My only hesitancy here is just the fact that it's confusing because we've already approved a portion of this. Are we signing one document? Are we signing one agreement for 55? I just want to make sure it's...
One agreement for 55.
Got it. But the payment has already been dispersed for 30.
I'll have to check to see if it was dispersed yet, but...
It wasn't?
No.
Okay. So,
That
okay.
answers that. So, one agreement, 55.
I figured they would answer. Okay.
Councilmember Chapman.
This is something we need to do to keep the, helping out. It's a big thing what we're doing with the community. We're in the city and everybody working together, so we need to work and help one another. So this is hopefully part of our donation helping out.
Further discussion?
I just had a question.
Councilmember Holland.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The tourism dollars were kind of cut in half. This right here would be like 85% of the remaining dollars. Is that where the money's coming from, or is it coming from taxpayer dollars?
Am I allowed to speak?
That's just my clarifying question before we vote, so I know how I'm voting.
Can I speak? So these dollars are collected from heads and bed stays, which there's a 4% fee that is attached. 2% goes to the county, 2% stays in the city. We bring in roughly $65,000 to $70,000 annually right now. So there was this $55,000 in addition to other items that have already been approved, which would be Lilac Days, Planters Days, some advertising for some of the events down in the park. So to answer the question, is 85%, I would have to do math, but probably.
Okay.
Roughly right in there, probably.
But it comes from those dollars, not taxpayer dollars?
Correct.
Okay.
It's all those dollars. All those things I just mentioned are all those dollars, yes.
Okay, that was...
Not additional, coming out of general fund is what you're asking.
Correct.
Yes, no.
But to clarify, even if you're paying a tax at a hotel, it's still taxpayer dollars.
Still
taxpayer. Right.
It's just you can only use it for certain.
Correct.
It's just lodging tax dollars.
Okay. Further discussion on action item R? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item R, hotel motel tax funding for 2020?
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
I believe this is one of these things I have to abstain on.
Yes.
Yes.
Gotta find it. Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
All right, action item R has passed with 5 and 1 abstention. Moving on to action item S, ordinance number 1456, amending city council rules and procedures, ordinance 1428, first reading.
Move adoption of ordinance number 1456, first reading.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Plaza. Councilmember Fredericks.
Just cleaning up language here as it relates to our committee meetings. Very small change. Needs to be approved, in my opinion.
Councilmember Plaza.
No comment.
Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the vote on action item S?
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza.
Aye.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Holland.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
All right, action item S has passed. I'd like to back up to action item R. I believe council rules state that any abstention must be followed up with a reason, and I don't think we got that on the record.
You want the reason why?
The reason why there was an abstention for action item R from Councilmember Graham.
It is because I am chamber president this year and sit on the board, of course, so.
Thank you. I apologize for not catching that.
That's okay.
Moving on to action item T as in Tom, authorize extension of professional services agreement with HHPR.
Move to approve, which item? T.
T. T as
There
in
we
Tom.
go.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Holland, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Is that correct? Councilmember Holland.
During our Public Works meeting, Tracy mentioned that this would just go to the end of the year, and then they'll put it out to bid again. So it was just a clerical oversight that this contract had expired.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, it is just an extension till the end of the year. And from what Ms. Coleman was saying, that really good knowledge by this guy. I guess he was a public director in the past, and his knowledge is very good, and probably saves us money in the long run.
Further discussion?
Just a question.
Councilmember Fredericks.
So when did this expire?
January? It's in the, it's June.
It's in here.
June, I think. There's a copy of the contract. I believe it expired in June. Or when does it, do you have a copy of the contract? I don't have it with me. It was in the
June
packet.
30th, 2019.
Yes.
So is there a process in place that the city uses to keep track of these things so that we're not having to do, because in my mind, in June 30th, or actually in January of 2019, you would have gone through a bid process on this individual.
So, I'm not sure what past practice was put in place in the Public Works Department. This contract was in place before I came here. I can tell you right now that I have a process in place for contracts and when they're going to expire, now that we have a full staff, which we didn't have previously. So if I'm here and if my staff are here, I can guarantee you that we won't, something like this wouldn't slip through the cracks. I don't know what the contract, I don't know what the process was before, so I can't answer the question. But I can tell you that I noticed that it was expired, and that's why I brought it. It was something that I just caught when I was looking at their contract, when I was filling out a grant application and realizing that it was expired. And so that's how I caught it.
So
I know I haven't answered your question.
No,
I
I think I got it.
Okay.
If I understand them correct, that each individual department head is managing their own contracts, and we don't have one specific contract manager. Is that what I
That is
understand?
correct.
Okay, and that, is that working for us?
It needs to get better.
Okay. Okay.
Further discussion? Will the clerk please take the roll? Oh my gosh. Take the vote on action item T.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
No.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Hall?
Aye.
Action item T has passed 5-1. Moving on to action item U, authorize amendment to the UV contract for wastewater treatment plant.
Move to authorize the amendment to the UV contract for the wastewater treatment plant.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion.
Councilmember Chapman.
This is something that needs to be done, so keep the ball rolling, keep the water flowing.
Further discussion.
Sounds,
Mr. Smith.
from what we discussed, it added electrical onto it, and it still stays within the proposed budget amount? Under the proposed budget amount at the end of the day?
All right, seeing nothing else, will the clerk please take the vote on action item U?
Councilmember Graham?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Plaza?
Aye.
Councilmember Holland?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Action item, I'm getting the giggles. Action item U has passed. Before we go into a workshop, the time is now 7:44. I believe we're going to be in workshop and executive session for a while, so we will take a 10-minute break. Ms. Coleman, I don't know how to sign this. It's true. All right, at 7:55, we're back in session. Thank you. And calling at 7:55, we're going immediately into a workshop. And we're going to be discussing two different items this evening: fire annexation with Clark County Fire and Rescue. Our folks in the back here tonight are here, and then also Cowlitz County comp plan applications. And our guest in the gallery has left. So let's kick off with some fire annexation. I wasn't here for the last workshop when this was discussed, so I'm going to kick this to Mr. Boyce.
All right, so I handed out some additional information on your desk. So at the last meeting, we had the consensus of council to look at option number 2 and option number 3. Option number 2 was to annex into the district, reduce property tax, and eliminate the public utility tax. Option number 3 was to reduce the property tax by the amount of the fire contract and leave the public utility tax alone. In looking at option number 2, the property tax reduction by a household with a $200,000 home would be $200,000. Of a $200,000 home, the reduction in property tax would be $296. I'm sorry, that would be the tax paid to the fire district. The reduction to the city tax would be $133. The reduction in public utility tax is a little more difficult to calculate because, as you know, it's based on consumption and use. So we generically pulled 3 different utility tax bills. One was a single person living alone. That's the first one. Their public utility tax reduction over the course of the year would be $179. We had a couple with 2 children. That equated to a $198 reduction. And a couple with 3 children, which equated to a $260 reduction. And as you can see, there's a total reduction across the board by $16, $35, and $97. And part of the reason for that is you have some businesses that pay have higher consumption and thereby pay higher rates. So, for instance, I pulled McDonald's. That's a $2,124 annual utility tax bill. So the property tax that would be continued to be paid to the city would be $236 a year based on that $200,000 home. Option number 3, you can see the property tax paid to the fire district at $296. There would be a corresponding reduction in property tax paid to the city of $296. That $200,000 home, the taxpayer would still contribute $72 to the city in property tax. So that's the breakdown of the impact on the taxpayer. I'm making some assumptions. A $200,000 home, the reduction of the public utility tax for 2020 comes in at $664,206 overall. When we looked at the specifics for the 3 groups, we actually pulled fiscal year 2019 actuals on the public utility tax. It's based on fiscal year 2020 tax estimates, and we need to say the calculations do not include the police levy that was just voted in, and that rate is at 60.627 cents. So that's where it comes out. Any questions on that? Not yet? Okay. The next handout you have is a draft of an ordinance. And it's based on the ordinance Battleground had passed. As many of you know, they were looking to annex with the fire district. And incidentally, it passed 82% of the vote was in favor of the annexation. They did it a little differently than what we're talking about here. They did a 10% reduction on public utility tax, and that was all.
And they were at, what, like 18%, I think?
I think 22%.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they're to our
They're
public
down-
utility take rate now?
Right.
Okay.
So they're down to 12.
Or that's what they're going to, okay.
And one of the questions Councilor Fredericks had was, okay, how do we word this in an ordinance? You know, what are the voters going to see? For both scenarios, what the voters would see is, shall the city of Woodland be annexed to be part of Clark County Fire and Rescue? Yes, no. In the whereases, one item Battleground did to reduce their public utility tax, they passed a resolution prior to the ordinance, and in that resolution indicated that they would make that public utility tax reduction. We could do that for both the property tax and the public utility tax, whichever option is chosen, or both in the case of option number 2. So when council passes a resolution, it's not law, it's basically the intent to take that action. Council in the future would still have the ability to ask for another levy lid lift if it so chose. Let's say the sales tax tanked, or by taking action in an ordinance that could amend the public utility tax. So council would still have those options moving forward. But it gives something concrete you can show the public, saying, okay, here's city council's intent to make that reduction. Questions?
Yes. So the ballot is going to say, this is it. Shall the city of Woodland be annexed to and be a part of Clark County Fire and Rescue? Yes or no, that's it. That's all it's going to say.
Right. If you talk about public utility tax, or if you talk about the reduction in property tax on the ballot, then you're committed to that.
Okay.
Meaning that it couldn't be raised again later if it needed to be?
Well, it would take...
Or am I misunderstanding that?
I believe it would take a vote of the people to make that happen. So right now, it would, to increase the property tax, you would have to go to a vote of the people to do a levy lid lift. So in that essence, it would be the same on the property tax. With the public utility tax, though, city council can make that decision as a body. So if you include that language in the ballot measure, then you would have to go to a vote of the people to alter the public utility tax.
Mr. Boyce, if I had you take the 2020 budget that we just passed, minus the police, as we've already approved it, and you were going to make these changes to that budget, what would it look like if we agree to option 2? And what would it look like if we agreed to option 3? What would because it would help me have a better understanding of, this is what it would do if we did this for this year's budget, this is what it would look like.
So in essence, let's go with option 2, the reduction in property tax, the reduction in public utility tax. So on the revenue side, we'd zero out the public utility tax. We would reduce the amount of property tax coming in.
Can I ask you a clarifying question?
Yes.
You said zero out the public utility tax. This makes it go away completely.
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it 13% currently?
12.5.
So, thank you. 12.5. We passed a 6% public utility tax increase to originally fund the fire department. So why would you take it all back?
Well, there are many Well, there are different options, and one of the ways you could look at it is if you eliminate the public utility tax, it's something city council can amend on its own. So, as opposed, either scenario, you're relying more on sales tax to fund government. You could even argue that even if you do nothing, we're relying heavily on sales tax because we still have that expense in the general fund with the fire contract. But by reducing the public utility tax, people will see an impact every 2 months when they pay their utility bill. So, part of it's a perception issue. Either way, we're reducing government funds by approximately the same amount. Either option you go for. The public utility tax I see as being more visible to the public and more impactful sooner rather than later. The property tax, they will see reductions on their property tax bill, but it may not be as obvious as the public utility tax that they see more often, 6 times a year.
I guess what initially concerns me with that is the ever so drastic increase of public safety that is currently hitting us year after year, and the inability to, if you look at the clerk treasurer's office, we haven't added a single person in that department for multiple years. If you look at the public works department, we have not added any people in the public works department for several years. And really, the only employee that I think we've added since I've been on council, other than, I think we added a part-time code enforcement 2 years ago, we have, I think it's just
the associate
community
planner.
development, right, in that department. But that department really should be almost self-sufficient, basically paying their way. So I guess it concerns me saying that you're going to walk away from the public utility tax altogether, because what I would be worried with is the issue of, we're going to take your tax away until we get to the next budget cycle, and then we're just going to increase your tax back up, because that's reality. And I get very concerned with, hey, we really want to get this done, and so we're going to say, yeah, let's take the public utility tax, let's take it to zero, and then the first year where we realize that we can't pay for public safety, what's the first thing we're going to be talking about as a council? We're going to be talking about either layoffs or cuts in other departments, which I'm not sure how. I think we'll struggle with that because there's not a lot left to cut, and so I guess it has me concerned initially, and that would have to be a decision that's made by this council on how we proceed. But
And council could look at it differently and say, okay, let's reduce the property tax a little bit more, retain a portion of the public utility tax, because like you point out, it is a little more difficult to do something with the public utility tax if it totally goes away. So there are other ways we can calculate this.
Well, how much of the public utility tax goes to the fire department? All of it? Or is there just a percentage of it?
It depends how you look at it. We get $664,000 we're anticipating for 2020 in public utility tax. The contract for the fire district is about $1.3 million. So it's in the general fund. You could argue that all of it goes to that, and a portion of property tax also. But we don't delineate exactly which revenue goes to which expense in the general fund.
Okay.
And the police measure that was just passed is funding specific positions and items within that department. I guess I get very worried about whether or not this information is accurate, and then having an aha moment when we're going right after we pass this in November, when we're going to be talking about budget, and then having an aha moment of, hey, appreciate you passing that annex when we told you we were gonna do this, but now we've got the budget, and guess what? We're in trouble. And maybe that won't be the case in 2021, but I could see that being the case definitely see that being the case in 2022. That's it definitely could happen, because by then you've added the positions in the police department. You should be full, by this time you should see full expense going forward, and it just leaves me worried that we're gonna end up making a promise on something that we may not be able to fulfill.
Right. And as you know, we're continually talking about places to cut, places to raise revenue. And when you think about it, the additional levy for the police doesn't really help the current budget except for general police equipment that's purchased. So it can only be used for the 3 positions, which will all be new, so that's new expense, new revenue to go with it. And then the idea behind the additional for general police equipment was we lost our gambling tax, and that helped offset that lost revenue. Our current 2020 budget, we didn't budget anything for equipment for the police department. They asked for a new car and some other equipment. That was not in there. So really, we're still looking at the general fund expenditures in street and park going forward. They are tight. And as you know, we have another labor agreement getting ready to open up this spring, which is going to be a critical item to the budget. And yeah, you're right. So when we're looking at this, we're trying to make it as revenue neutral as possible for the citizens. Battleground didn't take that approach. Battleground talked about a 10% reduction in public utility tax was all. Kept their property tax where it was, is my understanding. And then the folks that join annex into the new district will be paying that new property tax for that district. So it's, in essence, a tax increase for the folks in Battleground. So there are different ways we can approach this. These are just 2 options where we're trying to make it as revenue neutral as possible. But you're right, we're going to continue to have pressures on the general fund budget, the park budget, and the street budget moving forward.
So it would seem to me that you'd be able to, I think the chief wants to say something.
Councilmember Fredericks, if I can just clarify one thing. You were referring to public safety, and so I tend to roll police and fire into public safety. And so the city would, if this were to pass, the contract would still be in effect in 21, but effective January 1, 2022, the city would have no obligation to pay the fire district anything in 22. It would be fully funded by the annexation. So on that portion there, in your 2022 budget, there would be nothing that the city would be paying.
Were you referring to my comment that I indicated that our public safety costs are increasing dramatically?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was referring to. They are increasing, both from the fire standpoint, the fire contract, which you've obviously helped us out with, and then our police costs are rising faster than the city's revenues are rising, to where we're at a point where I get very concerned about making promises that long-term I don't think we're going to be able to keep. And so my understanding was, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I'm missing something here, but if we change the property tax and go down $1.50, shouldn't that resolve it? So we're just taking our $1.50 that we're already collecting and we're giving it to the fire department. Isn't that revenue neutral enough?
It is. There are just 2 ways to get there.
Okay. What would be the ramifications of doing just that? Just taking the $1.50, reducing ours by $1.50 and moving that over. Revenue cost, better service,
Yeah, so if we went that route, that would be as cost neutral as we could be with the annexation. We'd become even more reliant on sales tax, but we would have the public utility tax as a buffer. We wouldn't be making any promises regarding the public utility tax, which would make it, I suppose, easier for council to make an amendment if it became necessary. The net effect on the budget is pretty about the same. We're trying to reduce in both options by the amount of the fire contract in 2020, about 1.3 million. So the expense will go away, 1.3 million in expenditures. Revenue would be reduced by about 1.3 million. So either way, financially, we're in the same situation. If you wanted to make an increase in the future under option 3, you could either do the levy lid lift, go to a vote of the people, and the people would decide whether or not that was appropriate, or either option, City Council would be able to amend the public utility tax if it chose to do so.
Are you concerned about the long-term effects of reducing the city property tax collection to 62? What would be the number after we take $1.50 and lump it off the top?
It's going to be $0.36, so 36 cents.
But that doesn't include the .627,
Which is the police levy.
So are we at $1?
Yeah, so you're at, so 36 cents plus 67 cents. So.
Are you concerned about the long-term, what the ramifications are by reducing your property tax collection rate to that?
Well, you will have the reduction in the 1% annual increase we receive. But realistically, it's pretty minimal already, the 1% increase. Most of our increase year after year comes from new construction, at least in the last few recent years. So the question is...
So this year's number, if memory serves me correct, was roughly $31,000 increase that we received year-over-year difference between last year and this year.
Right.
Which didn't even come close.
Right,
to
and that
addressing
included new construction.
Right.
So it was more, I think the 1% was closer to 14,000, 15,000, somewhere in there. So, it's...
So I think that's from my standpoint, that's my concern, is that you get a $31,000 increase, and I'm just going to throw it out there, just one expenditure. Let's look at the contract that was just approved in the police department. That was a considerable expense, and we had nothing to cover that increase.
Right, and
so
that's part of the reason we didn't replace police equipment and some other things. Yeah, so basically going forward, we've been making cuts to the budget moving forward, but at some point, and that's the reason we talk about new revenues and ways to cultivate new revenues, because we can only cut for so long, and then we're going to have to find new revenue to operate. And that's part of the reason we lost the gambling tax. That was, close to $300,000 a year at its peak. And that, we tried to replace that, or we did replace that with the levy lid lift fund money.
So I've went through the budget every year looking for cuts. And we're at a point where we can cut more if we want, but what services are we all comfortable with cutting? Because that's really where it's at. I mean, and so that's what, I guess, again, the public utility tax reduction concerns me, because I would hate to say, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and then get to a point where we're having to increase it after we just promised the folks that we weren't going to do it. How's that going to go over?
Well, and another way to look at it too is if you reduce the property tax, everyone knows it would take a vote of the people to increase that back up.
Right.
Whereas the public utility tax, you could have a perception from the public that, hey, that's just window dressing. A year or two down the road, we're just going to pump that back up. So, it just depends how you look at it, depends how you think the public perception will be. If you reduce the property tax at 1%, we're talking $14,000. That's important to our budget. I won't say it's not. But in the larger scheme of things, it will grow over time. But really, it's new construction that's driving any property tax increase we have.
Okay. I've taken up too much of your time with my questions, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
The other item I wanted to mention in this ordinance, again, it was modeled after what Battleground had. They do talk about an IGA between the city and the fire district, talking about what happens in the interim and transitioning to the new situation. So that would also be something we probably need to look at, talking about assets and ownership of assets and whatnot, who provides fire service until the annexation takes effect. So
I would assume a seamless transition.
Oh, I would too. I just wanted to mention it in case you didn't say, what is this? The other information I gave you is what's in the packet, what you saw last meeting. I just left it there in case folks had questions related to these items.
So, again, I'm sorry, another question. Maybe someone else wants to go.
No, you go. We'll go after you.
Okay. So, someone who is writing the for statement for this ballot measure would, again, I would assume, would have to indicate that there's no net cost difference if you're taking $1.50 in property tax that is currently being paid to the city is now going to be paid to the district, no net increase, and then we would add, then this individual, whoever's writing this, would add the benefits of what this would be, so you'd at least, because this question alone on my ballot, shall the city of Woodland be annexed to and be a part of Clark County Fire and Rescue? I don't know. I'm assuming that that's how you're going to tell your story.
And there needs to be an explanation in the voter pamphlet also that goes into more depth. But the benefit going forward is the fire district would be able to tax, at the legal level that could sustain that service moving forward. The city is running into trouble where, if you look at my assumptions and my projections, you can see that the fire service contract would exceed property tax revenue by 2024. If we keep having that increase in the fire service contract, a smaller increase in property tax, really we're left with nothing else to do but cut other programs to help fund that, unless another revenue source can be found. So the benefit to the city moving forward is just that the fire service will be able to tax at a level that will keep that that service at the levels they want, and the city will be able to concentrate on its core services it provides with the revenue that's left.
So if I'm writing the against statement, what would you put in that? I would think that would be I'd have a difficult time coming up with something to say. Is there something that could be said that this is bad for Woodland and how we provide fire services, fire and EMS service for Woodland?
Well,
can you think of anything, Chief?
I would say the battleground examples used, the voters, they voted 80 to 20. and they saw a net increase in taxes because the Fire District 3, our neighbors to the east, are going to start taxing them at $1.35 per thousand. That was an agreement they had, but the city's not correspondingly reducing their rates by that. So one of the things that is a little harder to quantify, but the fire district in Washington, fire districts can assess up to $1.50 per thousand by a vote of the people. And over time, a lot of times that goes down and it edges down. And we were at, I believe, $1.36 per thousand. I'd have to check my numbers in 2017. And we went to a vote of the district taxpayers and said, can we return to $1.50 per thousand? And that was a 67% to 33% vote. And the members of the district voted that. And so we returned to that $1.50 a thousand. And then as assessed values go up, we can't exceed that state limit. So our rate dropped down to $1.44 in 19. Yeah, so in 17 it went back up to 18 to 150, 19 to 144. It does fluctuate, but it never exceeds the 150. So there's a potential net benefit to the taxpayers of Woodland already in that we will continue to float down, and the contract calls for $1.50 per thousand.
So will we go in at $1.50, or will we go in at the rate that is currently like $1.44? Will we start at $1.44 and then go ask them if we want to increase it back later to $1.50?
We are authorized up to $1.50
Right.
Until 2024.
Okay.
At which point, that was a 6-year lid lift. And at that point, if it goes down, and that's part of managing the district, if it goes down, at some point you say, look, if we're having we need the ability to provide services, and we're at $1.40, and 10 cents per thousand may be helpful in providing the services district-wide, we go to the voters of the district, of which Woodland residents would then be voters in the district also. So that's a block of voters who may say, we agree with that, or we don't agree with that. It would have to pass by 50% plus one vote district-wide, and Woodland residents would vote on that then.
Thank you.
And see, that's part of the concern that that I was having, is if we don't reduce one of these things, if not both of them, public utility tax and the property tax, to offset what the fire department will be collecting through their property taxes, when this goes to vote, all that the citizens are going to see is that it's just another tax. So, maybe I'm wrong, but the only way I see this passing is if we do some kind of reduction on one end to show that, well, we're no longer paying this, so even though I think everybody here can agree we need the money, but the citizens don't really care on the surface about the budget, right? When it comes to that, they want as much of their tax dollars in their own pocket as they can get. I don't see them voting for that unless there's some kind of give back from our side. Because, they'll just see it as another tax that they're getting stamped on them, and why should they pay another tax when they're already getting good service through the contract? So
There's two ways of giving that back, though. The two ways are a reduction in the public utility tax and also a reduction in the property tax.
Right.
Or you can just do all property tax and keep your public utility tax. So it really, instead of giving the $1.50 to the city, you're giving the $1.50 to the district. In my mind, unless I'm missing something as a taxpayer, okay, instead of giving the money to them, I'm giving it to them and I have representation. I think that the challenge would be is if you're not reducing your property tax net, like, you're giving $1.50 and you're also giving now, instead of giving the city the $1.50, now you're giving the county or the district $1.50. I think the issue becomes is if you're saying, well, we want to keep it, and I don't think we can even do that in this. We can't do that. We can't keep our tax rate. Let's say we're going to say, well, we'll give them $1.50. I don't think we can keep it, or the city's portion, higher than what we're giving the district, can we?
The highest it can be is $3.60
Right.
per thousand minus the district's portion. So say if we're at $1.50 a thousand, the highest you could be is $2.10 per thousand.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But that would require voter approval, though, to go there.
Pardon?
That would require voter approval to do that.
You would be limited by state law to 360 minus our rate. You could not be higher than $3.50.
So could you keep
Minus
it,
our rate.
could you just, this is, I'm not advocating for this, but you could keep it at, say you could keep it at $1, instead of $1.13 or $1.07, whatever it is, you could keep it at $1.60 if you wanted to?
Right, we could keep it where it currently is.
Right.
If we increased it, then we would have to have a vote of the people. But I believe, I'd have to do the math real quick, but, if we reduce the $1.50 off the 360, as long as we're not exceeding that amount, we can keep the property tax where it is.
But then that goes back to Councilmember Plaza's point, is you're not really, my tax isn't
It's not
really-
revenue neutral.
It's not
It
revenue
would be a
neutral.
net increase to the.
Right, it would be a net increase to
Right,
the
and they'd be,
ratepayers.
yeah, and by annexing into the district, they'd be seeing that increase.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the vote in Battleground, which was unusually high in my opinion for the fact that it wasn't a revenue neutral thing, I have always advocated that any time a merger or an annexation occurs, that it needs to be revenue neutral to the voter. They need to see it that way, or they're not going to vote for it. And again, we were wrong last week, but.
And I think this body's debate is how it should be done. Whether it should be done a combination of public utility, a combination of property tax, all property tax, and I think that's the overall the question.
And I really think either option, council moving forward has the same options for revenue. You can always adjust the public utility tax. There isn't a ceiling on it. So even if you eliminated it, you could add to it. If you kept it, you could still add on to it. If, on either scenario, reducing the property tax, in order to increase that back up, you have to go to a vote of the people. So really, under either option, you have the same, it's really the same situation. It comes down to what do you think public perception will be, and how can we message properly to make sure people understand what the ramifications of this vote are.
Well, it's my opinion, and it's just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth, that if we have money from the public utility tax and property taxes that are going to the fire department, if this passes and the fire department would be taxing or feeing the public directly, then the funds that were going to us through those two different taxes should be going back to the citizens. I understand the concern with the budget, but that money was, going to one department that we will no longer be funding, and so I just feel it would help pass this if the citizens saw a direct return on their thing. If we have to raise taxes in the future, that it would be up to us to properly explain the reasoning why those taxes need to be raised again, versus us saying, yeah, we were using this money for the fire department in the past, but we're not using it for that anymore, but we're going to keep it just in case something happens later. So.
And I am somewhat opposite of Mr. Plaza. I think we need to maintain our public utility tax because I'm concerned about saying we're going to lower it, only to have to come back in a future year to increase it. But I am an advocate for reducing the property tax by $1.50, which is what they're in essence paying for fire service to the city already. Public utility tax actually got us to full funding our fire department when we had no public utility tax. But given the rapid increase of public safety expense going forward, I get worried about that. So from my standpoint, I would like to see a reduction of $1.50 on the property tax and have that $1.50 fund fire department. Net cost to the taxpayer is zero. In essence, we're not changing anything. We're basically, in my mind, we're getting the city out of the fire business, and we're giving it to folks that know. And if you want to join the board and have a voice, run for election and do that.
And either option, either way we go, it's reducing the expenditure by 1.3 million, reducing the revenue by 1.3 million. So
fire cost, I can remember not too long ago, 10, 11 years, our fire cost was $750,000 a year. Now we wouldn't be able to do something when we got to you if you needed us. And we waited for many years it worked. We had volunteers that would come in sometimes. For many years it served the city well, but we got to a point where it wasn't any longer because it's hard. Employers are maximizing their efficiencies and wanting their people to work, not leave in the middle of the day for an hour and a half to go. Alarms would go off, people would come out of the woodwork, jump on the fire truck and go take a call. Those days are long gone to where that's an effective delivery model. It doesn't work for us anymore. So that's why we had the rapid increase in costs. We finally started to pay for it.
And I'm not an expert on those budgets, but it didn't look to me at first blush that we were saving for capital expenses either during that period of time.
Because we got through, our plan was we were going to get through that year.
Mrs. Holland.
I just had a question. The public utility tax.
Yes.
What all can you do with it? What things can it be spent on?
Any general government purpose.
So, if, let's say, we decide to keep it, lower the property tax, theoretically, that money could go back into actual public utilities, right? Like our utilities, water, sewer, garbage, that's...
It could, but then there would be a $664,000 hole in the general fund park street budget we'd have to try to fill somehow.
So it can go to anything?
Yes.
And that's...
The idea of the enterprise fund, so with water and sewer, is to set up a rate structure, and we're going through that rate
Right, the
analysis
thing
now
we
to
don't know.
support it, but,
Yeah.
but you're right.
But it could go to Public Works, it could go to...
It could go to anyone, any general government purpose.
And if we do it that way, put it before the voters, let's say they vote to annex themselves in, then we no longer have to come up with, like, extra money in the budget because next year it'll go up $100,000 and the next year it'll go up and yada, yada.
We wouldn't have to cover the fire contract, right? So
Right.
just regular expenditures, whatever increases there are, we'd have to find a way to cover those.
Gotcha.
But the idea is to reduce the expenditures by 1.3 million, reduce the revenue by the same amount. That's what we were trying to aim for in both options.
Okay. Thank you.
It would reduce our revenues, but to the citizen taxpayer, it should be the same tax bill they've received in the past. It's just where it's ending up.
Right. So they can be mad at the fire department and, yeah, okay.
Question?
Mr. Smith?
So how much is the city puts $1.50 towards the fire contract now?
Contractually, yeah, that's, I think this year you came in at $1.48.
So the contract is for $1.50 per thousand. The city has asked a few times for some relief, and so...
Every time.
Every year. Let's be honest. Thank you, Chief Norr, for being so polite. But every year we've asked for relief.
I confirm at 151 year, but, so I take that proposal to the Board of Commissioners, and they vote on it. And so the commissioners for the fire district have extended the same rate to the city that everybody else in the district pays. We've given a break on the contract, when in fact we could say, the contract's $1.50, we'd like the $1.50 per thousand. But the year that we were at $1.44, they extended that rate to the city, and they did it again this last year.
So essentially, we could be at $1.50 the entire life of the contract,
Yes.
whereas if we did annex in, it would be $1.50 until 2024? Is that what you said?
Up to, not to exceed $1.50. And the reason I say it is because if property tax values, or excuse me, property values go up higher, then we're still capped at how much we can collect. We can't just go to $1.50, and if everybody's property went up by 20%, we wouldn't be able to get 21%. We're capped in there. And so that makes the actual rate for everybody drop down a little bit. And then, and in 2024, the way it works is that becomes our new rate, and things tend to fall off from there. So you will see occasionally fire districts run a levy lift. A few years ago, District 1, the rural district around the city here, went for a lift, raised their rate from 68 cents per thousand to $1.50 per thousand. That's a pretty big lift. Most departments they'll float down to about $1.35, maybe $1.30. Then they'll ask the voters, here's what we could do with the additional income. Voters, are you interested in that? When you start asking somebody to double a rate or more, it's different. The district to the south of us, Fire District 6, they've floated down over the last several years to $1.19 per thousand. And in August of this year, they'll run a lid lift for their voters to say, can we go back to $1.50? Yeah. But that is a vote of all the voters in the district at that point.
So for us, you were being generous to the city to cut us a break.
Yes.
It would take a vote of the people after 2024 to actually continue to keep the $1.50?
Yes, it would go down unless everybody in the district voted for it.
Okay.
And there is, with the city of Woodland, and our population is about 42,000 in the village.
Okay. And I guess the next question, you said 6% was added on the public utility tax to cover it? So to help fund the fire department?
Yeah, 6% was funded back in, I'm trying to look at this historical, beginning in 2012 is when fire expense went from $679,000 a year to $1.2 million.
So I guess I could see the option of cutting out 6% since that was voted in for that reason on the public utility tax and then reduce property taxes on top of
There were items that
that.
helped offset that. That was a 6% public utility tax, which created, I think, about $400,000. We also had a gaming tax, a gambling tax that helped cover those costs.
I just had a question, again. So, random thought. If the people vote to annex themselves in, the city of Woodland currently owns fire equipment. That just gets absorbed by who? So you guys would just get the building across the parking lot and you would get all the equipment?
We utilize that equipment now in our fleet, and when the contract came up for renewal a few years ago, at the $1.50 rate, we agreed to replace fire apparatus as needed. So that's in that portion. So you're not really funding it. You're not funding capital replacement of that out of your general fund, but the fire equipment replacement, it would need to be replaced at some point. So we have physical possession of all of your apparatus now, and they're aging.
Right.
Right now, so they're all going to need to be replaced at some point. The station needs to be finished out at some point, and so that the cost for that, if you're annexed in, is borne by the full members of the district, citizens of the district. 42,000 people are paying for that, as opposed to the 6,000 people who live in Woodland right now.
Okay. Thank you.
How does the building work, considering we still have debt service? I think that will be a question that will come up as well. Do you take that over?
No, our expectation would be that the fire impact fees that you currently collect would have to go for a fire purpose, and they were dedicated for the funding of that building you wouldn't be able to collect them for anything else.
Gotcha.
Or use them for anything else.
So there's still expectation you would collect the fire impact fees to help pay the debt service?
Pay the debt service that you incurred for that construction portion of the building.
Okay.
If at a later date, the option is made to complete out the building, you're just paying for your portion that you obligated the city to.
Which is what's there now?
Pardon?
Which is the portion that is there now?
Correct.
So would that just be a pass-through then? City collects it and just gives you the check and you pay
Similar
the
to
debt
what
service?
happens with the school district.
Okay, got it.
Are we currently paying any more other than fire impact fees on that debt service?
No, we're not.
Above and beyond,
That's
just the
it.
fire impact fees and
Just
that's
fire
it?
impact fees cover that.
And what happens when we run out of land and we're no longer collecting impact fees and we still have debt?
You sell a kidney.
And you sell a kidney, all right.
It's
Yeah. I guess, when we talk about our comprehensive plan and not expanding, this is one of the reasons why we try to get more payers into the system. Is that an accurate statement? To help continue to pay for the services?
More people paying fire impact fees mean better facilities in Woodland.
Mr. Smith?
So this annexing is just the city of Woodland that would be annexing into it? The county outside of the bottoms and everything would not be in this annexation? So every call you go to them would still be funded by people in the city, essentially?
Yes.
Is there any talk of trying to annex them into it also?
There should be.
Starting to sweat. I'm just kidding.
By state, by RCW, so anytime that the city annexes, at that point, we are your fire department. And anytime you annex any portion, that comes into the city, comes into the district also. So, for example, if development happened in the bottoms and the city annexes that space, then we would become the fire department for that area, because we're your fire department.
Right now, so can I answer just a follow-up to his question?
You're starting to sweat. Are you ignoring?
Answer if you can ask a question. But yes, go ahead.
You may not be able to answer this question, and that's okay, but has there been any discussion with Cowlitz One to do this, to have them maybe, how can I say this? Partner, maybe provide a higher level of service that is currently being offered to those folks? Has there been any discussion with District 1 in that?
As it relates to us merging with District 1,
Well,
and I'm going to mess up some words here, but districts merge
Right.
and cities annex, and so...
How about contracting for service? Any discussion?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Because it concerns me that the minute you pass into the city limits, the level of care, in my opinion, goes way down. Unless you guys are involved.
And as I've told you before, and there are places in this country that the boundary is a hard boundary.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, that if your kids get in a car and drive 5 miles up the road and turn and come back and they get in a car crash just outside the city, and Fire District 1 isn't able to provide a volunteer force that day, everybody's at work and they can't go out there, we step in and go out there. Because I don't know whose citizens they are, but I do know I'm not going to leave them on the road because they're 100 yards out of town or something like that. So Fire District 1 does call on us in a much higher proportion than we call on them, but I don't want to leave anybody's citizens out. I feel like even though we're in the city, the citizens of the city are paying that, we're all community to a degree. I mean, and at some point, sir, if it got too crazy, we would have to draw a line and say that it's unbalanced.
Sure.
But right now, we assist when we're called on.
So I'm assuming you guys have inter-service agreements with each other, so,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
The state, the fire chiefs throughout the state several years ago came up with a good system where everybody within a given county agrees that we'll go anywhere in the county. So we have agreements that we'll go with anybody anywhere in Clark County, and we have agreements with everyone in Cowlitz County. So our unit from here, our ladder truck that we had stationed here, has gone to downtown Woodland on fires. It's gone to Kalama several times on fire. So if the neighbors call, we go and help. And the expectation is they come this way when we need their help. There are times, we haven't used them lately, but there are times when AMR has no ambulances available. We'll call Kalama for their ambulance unit. We haven't done it in 7 years, but we know that they're a partner if we need them, we could. And if we had a large fire going here that absolutely exhausted all of our resources, everybody in CCFR is here at a fire, we know that we can call on Kalama. Right now, if there is a fire in the city, we automatically ask for a fire district 1 engine and beyond. So they'll either come out of the bottoms here or from up the river road. We'll ask for them. They're not always able to put a fire.
Now, how does paying for that work? Does it come out of your guys' fund or with the city?
There's no payment for it. It's called mutual aid, and that's where I talked about if it gets too out of balance. If you get to the point that I give you 100 and you give me 5, it's no longer mutual. The idea is it's 5 to 5.
Right.
And we monitor. I monitor those, but again, as a fire chief, I'm just a softie for people's things that are on fire or they're injured out there.
Mr. Goddard.
So during our comprehensive plan discussion previous years, the rough calculations that I was able to develop with both the police and the fire departments was about a 5% call rate responded to external calls. So that could be state highway support. So if there was an accident on the state highway, we could have responded to those calls. It's roughly about 5% of our call volume for both the police and fire department.
I would concur with those numbers based on 2019 responses. That it was just slightly over 5, maybe 5.1, 5.2, that we went to Calais 1 as an overall volume of calls at Station 29 here in Woodland.
From a historical standpoint, previous Councilmember McCall and I had worked on this with Chief Jackson on a long-term plan for what our fire department was going to look like. I think that the contracting with the county, or with the district, not the county, contracting with the district made a lot of sense from, especially the long-term contract, is that we wouldn't have to buy fire engines. We wouldn't have to, because they would be able to plan knowing that they had the revenue stream coming in. But long-term, I understood, at least from my perspective, is that we would not be able to cover the costs. The costs would get out of hand. They would rise faster than our revenue. So I think the long-term plan, at least from our standpoint, was the fact that, okay, at some point, we're going to get out of this. And that's because if you look at page 171 of 202, which is in your agenda tonight, you see the long-term option 1 of no annexation. Beginning in 2021, we're going to have to come up with $20,000. In 2022, $92,000. 2023, $170,000. 2024, almost $250,000. And then by 2025, we're going to have to come up with $347,000. Now, there's only a couple ways to do that. If we decide not to do this, or we don't get an annexation, there's only 2 ways to cover it. Going to the voters, asking them to increase our property tax, or increasing the utility tax rate to a substantial amount to fund it. Those are, in my mind, really the only 2 ways that you can pay it. Or you adjust internally, you cut somewhere to move those funds from this area of the city to another area of the city. But keep in mind, what is our general fund, overall general fund budget? $6-7 million.
Right.
So we have a $20 million operating budget. Most of that is enterprise fund, which means you can't spend it you can't spend water money on police, or fill in the blank. You can't, or sewer money or garbage money, you can't do that. So beginning in next year, if nothing is done, it's an additional $20,000 expense. And then in future years, that number keeps climbing. way faster than the 1% increase in our property tax is ever going to fund. It's just, it won't do it.
Well, that's kind of the concern I had, is if one of these, option 2 or option 3 aren't one of the options, and we just keep all of the utility tax, that the citizens aren't going to vote for it, and, we're concerned about revenue now. If we don't annex, I mean, we're in even deeper than we are now. So, I feel, again, my opinion is, I think for the sake of the vote, we go with option 2, or at least, if not all of the public utility tax, at least a portion of it go back to the citizens. And again, it will fall on us if we need to raise it back up in the future, that we can explain it in a way that makes sense.
And I'm for option 3. So there you go. For example, for the concern of promising something and not being able to keep that promise in a year. Here we are. We just thank you for doing that. I think it reduces the trust on the voter when you take something to them, and it makes it appear that something's going to happen and then we don't do it. I think
I agree with that completely. It's like having a tax for an emergency fund, and big money gets spent on other things.
It can happen.
Whereas I see, if we give the portion, at least portion of the public utility tax back to the citizens, giving them more money to spend in our community, and the sales tax would maybe not make up the whole amount, but at least it will help a little bit when it comes to that type of stuff.
Option 3 reduces it by $1.50 payment to the city and increases it by $1.50 to the district. Net gain of 0. That to me is, in my mind, the best way to do it. To me, it's cleaner. I think the public utility tax creates somewhat of a challenge that we can reduce it, we can increase it, but I think if you increase it shortly after you recognize that you're not going to be able to have that in your 2022 budget after you passed it in 2021, I don't know, maybe people have a short memory, but I would remember it.
Mrs. Hollins, you worked with a lot of people in your other line of work.
Yes.
What do you believe is important to your clients over there? What is the hardship every month?
Well, the utility thing, we don't really help with people's water, sewer, garbage. So other agencies can do that. Woodland Action isn't involved in any of that. The biggest increase that we see is, like in January, gosh, we probably had 10 or 15 people asking for rental assistance, just because everybody's rent keeps going up.
Okay.
And so rent goes up because generally, besides greed, but if your property tax, if you're a landowner, if you're a commercial property owner or whatever, and you're going to raise rent, it's because your property tax went up. So in that regard, I could see people, I think it sucks how much I pay for water, sewer, garbage, but I would rather as a regular person, I would rather the pass-through. I think option 3, the pass-through. It's easier for people to understand, but I don't think lowering everything just so we can go back and go, oops, we got to go back up, and then we just look like idiots. And so that it might be cool and all in the beginning, but I don't know that anybody I know would really be impacted by, $20. $20, yeah, is $20, but $20 on your water bill when it could be your rent doesn't go up constantly, because we all get gouged with that anyway. It's like my house just got reassessed at $36,000 more than what it was last year, and it's rolling up on 50 years old. So it's you see what I'm saying? I'm just That's my thought on this, but, yeah, I mean, so all we're doing tonight is rehashing all of this, picking an option, and then moving forward, because you need this to go on what ballot? Which ballot?
The August of this year,
And then you have to have it into elections by
May 8th.
May,
And
okay.
so the two options I given previously was your April 6th meeting would be the preferred, no later than your April 20th meeting.
Gotcha.
Got a calendar in front of me here. And then the Board of Commissioners to do a concurring resolution to move it over.
No.
Mr. Boyce, what do you need from council this evening to move forward?
I would like to have consensus on which option you're looking at.
I know we can't take a vote. Is there a?
It's workshop, so no.
Okay. Can we go down the line and?
What we like and what we,
Yeah.
which option we like.
I think everybody agrees option 1 is out.
Which
That's
is nothing.
just crazy, yeah.
Right.
Can I say one thing on
Mr.
what you
Smith?
brought up? You brought up rentals and reducing costs. The utility bill, lowering them a little bit would help the rentals out the quickest. I don't foresee a landlord lowering the cost of their rent if you lower their property tax.
No,
I
but
just don't see it happening.
It would not continue to go up, and most rentals, water, sewer, garbage are included in that. But if you're renting a home,
Renting a home.
you, the renter, are paying the water, sewer, garbage.
I could see doing a balance between both, doing it off property tax and the utility tax, and it affects everybody at that point. It affects the rental market and it affects the homeowner market. So there stands a chance where the landlord won't increase it. Small chance, but
Well, there's also that chance that if you decrease it, the landlord's not going to decrease it. Just-
Well, we know.
The greed factor, just putting that out there.
If property taxes went down, so did your rent payment.
yeah, I don't see him ever lowering it.
Landlords are like the government, they always raise their prices,
I
it
think
never goes back down.
To some extent, some of these landlords too own other businesses, and some of these other businesses, the cost of labor has increased so much because we have this new wage that we're paying in the state, and I think that they'll figure out a way to make it to where they're making double-digit returns on their investments. That's what any good business who's in business is going to figure out, how to make 10% profit at least. The good ones are making 20. A really good 30. But it does play into it. Higher labor costs play into a lot of, you can't raise labor and expect that your rents are not going to increase. It's fantasy, it's fallacy. They're always going to increase. Be saying $50 minimum wage, but it'll cost you $12 for a gallon of milk.
I'm for option 2.
Let's go, Mrs. Holland. Can I get a number from you?
Get you off your soapbox.
3, thank you. Mrs. Rounds is not here. Mr. Chapman?
3.
Mr. Fredericks?
3.
Mrs. Graham?
3.
Mr. Plaza?
Well, it doesn't matter at this point, but I'll say option 2.
Mr. Smith?
He likes
2.
to.
2. You were sticking with that. I didn't know if you were going to stick or not. Okay.
Nothing prevents
Right.
us from reducing a public utility tax by a
Right.
majority vote of the council any budget session.
Right.
When have you ever seen a tax go down?
So currently, right now, what we've put on the table is just strictly pass through and getting rid of the public utility tax. Is what it just, is that correct?
No, lowering the property tax.
Property tax.
That's option 3.
Option 3. Keep the utility tax, get rid of the property. Or not get rid
If
of
you
it.
read this option, this page, this
Oh,
one,
I guess I'm just sticking to the front page.
yeah. Annex with the district reduced property tax, and then that way,
Okay.
we're out of the fire business.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
But, so, when this gets to this point, who's gonna write the for and against statement? I mean, I've totally done that before, and I've also read ones, because legally, people don't actually have to even put the truth in them. So, would somebody from the fire district?
I'll say historically, a political action committee has been formed, and then they approach the district and the city as a proponent of, and then you would select them or another party to write the for statement. The same can be said if there was anybody against it.
See, we just went through this with the levy lid lift where it was so confusing to most voters that I would like to not revisit that, if you know what I mean. When you spend all your time trying to explain that, sorry, none of this is accurate, and when you guys are actually the people who can fully explain it.
You guys are going to take on the heavy lifting.
That's
The public education portion, part of that timeline is that public education portion, to get the word out, to have somebody establish a political action committee and get that information out to the public. Mayor, I would expect that you could have some council members attend at least 2 public education informational sessions in the city, or minutes are also good. And we will have at least 2 in the district, and there'll be more than that. They currently have more planned out. To answer your question, I was quite surprised, but and I know I've referenced the battleground annexation recently. There was no against it. So there was nobody.
Chief Nor, I hate to say it, but Woodland rather fight than fix. So I anticipate somebody stepping forward. I too will be surprised if they don't.
To answer Councilman Frederick's previous question, what could possibly be against it, I've been rolling around in my mind, the only possible scenario I can envision is where you can see this Clark County and Cowlitz County, this would be Cowlitz County dollars into potentially cross border. It's far flung to that. It's so much of a stretch.
That's easily refutable anyway, so.
It's very easily refutable considering that the dollars, the wages and equipment that sits here far outweigh what you're actually paying in business. So that will be the statement. The contractor won't pay for everything that sits in the station.
Yeah, so that's not a big deal, but like Councilmember Holland was saying, and I think Mayor Finn said, somebody's going to come up with some just nutty off-the-wall stuff, so just be ready for that, because...
All right, we're going to, do we have what we need to move forward to bring back to council the resolution to move forward? Okay, perfect. All right, yeah. For who? Holy smokes. Cowlitz County Comp Plan applications. No. We still got a lot to do. You've been over here running your mouth. Mr. Goddard. I might.
Yes.
We still got an executive session to go.
So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown on some applications in Cowlitz County that the city staff has been asked to review. There are 3 cases. One of them was 2235 Lewis River Road. There is a map, I believe, about 4 pages down, Pete. This is the Lewis River storage, boat and RV storage, just on the edge of town. So the green represents the city boundary, and it's just up river across the street from the middle school, or sorry, the intermediate school. The area in pink is in our comprehensive plan as commercial, and the county is entertaining a comprehensive plan amendment to go to industrial.
That's what I did.
And isn't it right next door is a house?
Yes.
Right there are houses. I know who used to live there.
In the county?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and mind you, I know you're getting into it, but just south of that, in the next green square next to it, we have a high-end 55 and older community that will be breaking ground this spring.
That is being planned.
Community, that will be going in with 35 homes.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So, are the folks that live next to this, that all live in homes in the green areas there, or in the blue, are they aware of this change? Or is anyone reaching out to them to let them know that, hey, the county's making this change? Is the county reaching out to them to provide any sort of input into the process?
At this stage, it is just a pre-application conference, so when the application is submitted, they should get notice.
I don't think we should pump the brakes, though. I don't. I think we should get in front of it.
So the city's comments, which are included in your package, simply included that it is consistent with our comprehensive plan, and our desire would be to go from unzoned to commercial zoning, so that it would be consistent with our comprehensive plan. The uses that are there would be consistent with our commercial zone. They would also be consistent with our industrial zone, so it may be just a semantics issue, but technically, we would like the county to be consistent with our comprehensive plan, and that would be consistent with our 2002 resolution, where the city and the county agreed when we went growth management with our comprehensive plan, that they would honor our comprehensive plan and we would honor their desires within our urban growth boundary, and this is within our urban growth boundary. So we're simply asking them to continue to be consistent with the city. We also ask them to please consider significant adverse environmental impacts like traffic, schools, fire, those other impacts. So that's kind of our standard comments that have been going to them. So if you don't have any questions?
I have a question,
yeah.
just theoretically. So, the little city limit sign is in the green spot, right? The little line, here's the red box.
Yes.
So the city limit line is here. So, how much, who needs to answer my question? How hard is it to move it?
So
I
another...
know we did all that with the bottoms, but I'm just talking about scooching it up a little bit, because it used to sit outside my house and it's now up there, which is quite a ways away.
So it is in our urban growth boundary, so we could annex them at any time. And we are actually in conversation with the consultant, asking them, why are you going through a $6,000 county process when you could annex and do your proposed plan for less than $6,000? And so we're trying to convince them to simply annex and get city zoning instead of getting county zoning that's inconsistent with the city zoning.
Why would they do that? Just hypothetically speaking, why would they do that when they're probably they're going up a hill and trying to get that zone industrial?
A common theme is, why would you want to be in the city when you can do what you want in the county?
Right.
Well, yeah, you can pour like oil out on the ground and it's all cool and all, but in the city you can't do that.
I don't have an answer for that because I'm not the applicant. If I was the applicant, I might have more insight into why they're doing this.
So, back to my question. What does it take to move to just annex? What is that? Just, it gets on the agenda, we vote, and it happens?
So that's a very good question. These properties have water service, but they do not have sewer service. If the city was doing what it was supposed to under the 2002 agreement, there should be a no annexation. As part of that water agreement, there is a clause that says they will not fight annexation when it occurs, at which point the question for us would be, do we want to prevent an industrial zone being applied here by triggering that annexation clause and bringing them into the city, at which time we can give them the zoning that we guaranteed them under the comprehensive plan, and we would let them pick, do you want C1, C2, or C3, and then they would be able to get a permit in the city for less than the comprehensive plan change in the county. And that's the conversation we're trying to have with the consultant. If we have an agreement in place, it's also entirely possible that we have given them water without the required agreement. So I'm not sure when it went in, and it, yeah.
There's no consistency.
If we can find that agreement, yeah, we could trigger the annexation as we see fit.
Somebody's family member. There's water.
So,
Seems like a small patch to leave out for.
Yeah, I don't know how.
I don't know. No, she's in the city. She's the Green Square down.
so these
Yeah.
houses here, and then this house.
Yes.
So Janice, you might remember, this would be Hummel's property, right? Because it looks like.
down from McCracken's?
Yeah, McCracken is right in the pink.
Yeah, that's my cracking right there.
Yeah, 6 acre down McCracken's Road.
Now, we would only be able to annex them if they had a water or sewer service agreement. So if you were on McCracken and you were on a private well, you would never have to worry about the city arbitrarily triggering that annexation agreement.
Is the storage facility getting water now? Who is getting water over there?
I believe it is the smaller building to the front, which I believe has a mix of tenants. I'm
It
not sure
does.
exactly who's in there.
Okay. And there's an auto repair shop across the way, north of them. Do they get water?
I do not believe they do.
So we could we can't take them in.
We couldn't, unless they wanted to voluntarily come in to get water and sewer. That's one of the benefits we do offer.
What property is trying to rezone to industrial?
It's the building with the repair shop and the storage facility.
So in red.
The one in the little red box, right, or orange box?
Orange box?
I believe on the Kraken that we have multiple water meters that are serving that red property.
Okay.
Because we just went out and did a repair this last.
Oh, that one.
Okay, perfect.
So it includes the orange box.
These two here, does
Yeah.
not include these.
That's RV parking under the long strips right
So the blue portion, what is that? Is that part of the UGA or?
That is
or
part of the
UGB?
UGA. It is not commercial, it is residential.
And Tracy, Ms. Coleman, do you have water meters out there?
We have them down the Kraken. It's actually, we had to move it because it goes into the backside of that storage facility.
Okay.
And there's a gate that's back there, and I know we have a water meter, we had to move it because of access. So, and I think we have multiple meters out there, if I remember correctly. We just did that with
I don't know.
Rifle this last year.
So if there's people behind and there's people all around that auto repair shop that's not getting water, does everybody get annexed in except that one patch in the middle? Or do they automatically get included?
So annexation is triggered by property owners by petition. The city can initiate an annexation, but it would have to be by a vote. And in some cases, we have agreements with citizens that they will not try and fight the annexation, in which case we would be able to trigger annexation without having to.
Well, I'm sure what you tell them is it's going to be zoned industrially.
Yeah. Have they divulged a plan on what they plan on putting there that is industrial related?
I have not talked to the owners in particular or the applicants in particular, but my understanding is that they would like to potentially explore a cell tower
And
at
it's
that
directly
location.
across from the school.
Yes.
Yeah, kitty corner.
A cell tower?
Yep, you can see the school on the bottom left-hand side.
So what's a cell tower have to do with industrial?
It must have something to do with the permitting process in the county. So if it were annexed into the city, they would still be able to build a cell tower if they can meet certain criteria. So they have to show that there's no other opportunities to co-locate on an existing tower in the area. They would have to show that there are no industrial sites that would accommodate it in a better location. And so we updated our ordinance that allows us.
They don't have to do it, they don't have to do that with the county.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's.
Bunch of
why-
cowboys.
That's why you're doing it. There's no interest in them to do anything with the city.
Yeah. So they might be able to get the same product in the city or out of the city. They would just have to justify that they've done their due diligence to protect the public in the city.
Okay.
Okay, next one. So Pete, if you could go down to the next section. Sorry, might be about 5 or 6 more pages. And that's my comment letter.
Very well written, thank you.
Thank you.
Tell me when to stop.
Right there. Actually,
You guys are making my eye twitch.
sorry, this is upside down 108.
See, I've had time to
180
digest
degrees
this
upside
small
down.
ones.
No.
So what you're looking at here is a potential comprehensive plan request for the county, and this is south of town. What you see in the top left-hand side is Wayland Road, and then South Pekin coming down the side here.
So, this is Wayland. It comes up, meets Pekin here, so Waltz meets. Is in
Right
this
there,
location
yeah.
right here. We have the storage facility, and then the Lewis River is over here on this side.
So have you talked to the Hausers
We have not.
about?
So again, this is another application to Cowlitz County for them to consider a change in their comprehensive plan. The site is currently 2-acre minimums, or I'm sorry, 5-acre minimum called the Small Holding District, and the applicant is requesting suburban comprehensive plan amendment that would allow them to go to half-acre lot sizes. And so when we were discussing this area for potential expansion of our urban growth boundary, one of the stated concerns we had, and that is if the city doesn't do some kind of proactive effort to plan the area south of town or the bottoms, that the county would be making decisions for us. And one of the applicants that was asking to expand the urban growth boundary south of town, that was their plan A. They wanted to get city water, they wanted to get city sewer, and they wanted to develop in partnership with the city so that they could extend our services. They are now looking at a development that you can see on your screen. They're half-acre lots. They would have a private water system, and they would have private septic systems on each individual lots, or potentially, depending on how the soils are, maybe community septic systems. So this is kind of one of the things that I feared and discussed as part of that discussion. So the city developed a letter like we did for the previous case. It's also attached in your file. It raises the issue that we concerned, or the issues that we were concerned about during the comprehensive plan, specifically impacts to schools, water, fire, our transportation system, also our park system, and the idea that half-acre lots will prevent the city from ever being able to grow in that direction, because the next property to the south that is likely to develop, if they wanted to develop as part of the city, we would now have to install a pipe that bypasses this property and these 250 potential customers. We would have to build around them, and that's almost cost prohibitive. So what it means is the next property to the south is looking at half acres, and then before you know it, we'll have half acres all the way down to the river, which means that all of that traffic and all of those impacts will continue to impact us, and we will never have the opportunity to look at the new construction or the taxation benefits to help offset the expenses and the wear and tear that will occur on our infrastructure. So
Yes, yes.
I like that idea.
What she said, I missed it. Oh, yeah, I've thrown that out a number of times. Feel free to leave the city, but when you come back in, you're gonna pay.
Make them pay both ways.
Yeah, just a little arm thing.
So unless you have any questions about this one, we can move on to
This is, so is this the Ferguson, I'm trying to visualize in my head, is this the Ferguson property that was like across the street from?
So it is, it's currently the farm, I'm not sure if it's Ferguson or Donald.
It's Donald, there's no Ferguson property involved with this one.
Okay.
It borders the Ferguson property, I believe.
Okay, and so Aho bought it?
Not
Or
yet.
Aho just wants to, they just can't leave agricultural land alone and they just need to build there because that's the only place to build. But they have it, so this is just their
At this point,
layout.
this is what theoretically their option B. Their option A was to work with the city, and barring this, then if this doesn't get approved, theoretically, their option C would be to divide it into 5-acre parcels, which is what the county currently allows. You can see on the bottom side, the county has already allowed a bunch of super small lots that are going to bar future good planning and good city expansion into that area. So in this case, we are working down from, good planning to crappy planning. So eventually we're
So
going
pretty
to...
typical for our area, let's haphazardly slap things wherever, and then 5 years down the road, it's like, oops, now what do we do?
And the issue that I pointed out during our comprehensive plan discussion is, let's look north of town, up Green Mountain Road, and there's a bunch of 2- and 5-acre owners who are dead set against having anything to do with the city or good planning or additional development. So, in a sense, we are looking at that same kind of resistance band being south of the city, which means eventually we're going to get to the point where we won't be a bedroom community because there's no more land left to develop, and it is what it is.
So like, if this went, let's say, a year from now, Cowlitz County Commissioners are like, yeah, dude, let's do this. They start building. Let's say we put this before the voters for, like, the fire department, for instance. You've just put 250 homes, or this guy's put 250 homes there, which is at least 500 people, right? If not 1,000.
It's about 2.5 people per
Right.
residence, yeah.
So you've packed all these additional people there, and that's that little fire station out there, right? They're clearly not going to be able to handle any of it. So then that would become part of the fire department's responsibility, I guess, to deal with that. But they're outside the county, or they're considered county, so they don't have to pay into any of it. Gotcha, okay. Just because then it makes sense that if, what he said previously, that if the one kind of unbalanced, then they'd have to deal with it then. Gotcha.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I think Chief Kelly can answer this, because that's kind of remote, and it's county shorthanded as it is. If they get a 911 call for burglary or something, Cowlitz County can't handle it. Where does that call could go to then next?
City of Woodland would handle it.
Which would be 90%, at least 70% of the calls coming out of there Woodland would have to take because Cowlitz can't respond down here fast enough for them?
Not necessarily. I think the sheriff will make an effort to, reallocate assignments.
But it is put more of a burden on them as
Well,
well.
it'd be a burden on both.
Yeah.
The city of Woodland as
Yeah.
well as Cowlitz County. They would have to consider, personnel reassignment allocation for specifics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just not a very good situation for Woodland.
A lot of it would have to do with, what the crime being reported was. If it's just a stolen bike, then they can wait until the sheriff's department can get there. But if somebody's being...
Domestic violence.
Can you imagine, though?
Yeah.
If you think about it, if you're in the market for a home, and this is your area, your fire coverage is through Cowlitz 1. Your police department is in Cowlitz County, Longview, Kelso, and response times are going to be out of this world. And your school district can't pass a replacement levy. And all these homes are going to impact your district. Now, as a buyer, when you look at those three things alone, would you move there?
They're gonna look at
I was going to say, do the average people actually look at that?
They don't look at that.
They're gonna look at the price.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They get bang for their
Yep.
buck, and they're gonna.
And that's when we invest in lodging tax dollars for advertising. Don't come here.
They don't look at that.
like it.
These
It's
are
gonna be like
low price
low income,
homes for
middle.
first-time buyers that don't have the education level to look at information like that.
So it's essentially taking advantage of people
Yes.
and kind of jacking it up for
The
everybody.
advantage is just that they're selling to a different market that don't have the knowledge base that we have. And so, and that's not a good or a bad thing. I mean, everybody has a different knowledge level, but people who are buying these homes have a different knowledge base, and that's not what they're buying the home for. They're buying the home because they can't buy a house in Vancouver or Clark County. They're buying it because they have to buy it out here, and they don't really have a choice. So then they're going to come to the council meeting, though, I guarantee you. And,
Yes.
and they're going to complain about that. They're going to complain that why can't we be annexed into the city? And they're just going to start complaining about the roads and the impact of 21, and we have no revenue to help with their complaints.
Tuesday mornings, 9 o'clock, Cowlitz County Commissioners, that's where they want to go.
And isn't it interesting that their meetings are when everybody's at work? That's the biggest complaint of why people don't attend.
And if you think this is bad, Mr. Goddard, I believe, has a third
Oh, yeah.
something else to show you. Travis.
Quit twitching.
Go ahead and Pete, if you could scroll down, there's
I'm
a
sorry,
map,
I
I
called you
think,
Pat,
the
Mr.
very
Goddard.
last page. Oh, sorry, right there. So there's also a request, sorry, this one is another
this
one
one's
that's, out by the Lewis River Golf Course, they are looking at a comprehensive plan amendment that would also go from, I believe it's rural to suburban. And this one has the potential of adding 250 RV sites, tiny homes, and cottage housing. So this one's about 5 miles away from the city limits, though, so the impacts aren't necessarily as direct.
It's just coming the other way.
Still will.
Yeah, so,
Right
yes.
into exit 21.
Unless you're trying to make a right on the Lewis River Road at 7 o'clock in the morning.
So if you're looking for balance, yes, the trips would be coming from both directions at probably a 1-to-1 ratio.
And they're going to put a bridge across the river and, that'll make it all work.
So again, our comments include potential school impacts, potential traffic impacts, potential park impacts. This one doesn't necessarily have a water or sewer option for us, although I did raise the issue that if they add a significant number of septic systems, and my concern about the potential of that groundwater and getting into the Lewis River, because this is upstream of our water intake, so my concern would be of a lot of unregulated or unmaintained septic systems dumping water, potentially contaminated water into our drinking source. So hopefully the county will take that to heart in some of their discussions.
Hey, Chief, are you familiar with this area? Is this already inhabited by
The compound?
a overpopulation of RVs that are illegal at this time?
I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've been up there,
Right.
so I can't answer that question.
So what's...
It's around there somewhere.
What's the logic of tiny homes, calling it tiny homes? Is that their thing of, hey, look, wink, wink, here's our affordable home option?
So it is a potential, it's an alternative type of housing unit, so, theoretically, the price point at 800 square feet is less than 3,400 square feet. We had previously had a quick discussion a couple months ago about some information that was shown, how the average house size, like 50 years ago, I think it was 800 square feet, and currently the average house size being constructed, I think it's like 2,700 and 3,400. No, not necessarily. So, well, And yes, so I've argued that we have a missing middle housing crunch because we continue to construct the Blacktail size homes, the neighborhood there where they're building significant 1,700 square foot homes, and so the house price is, $280,000, and now you're starting to get product that is different sizes, so theoretically this is a good thing, as long as it pays for itself, and, they aren't collecting for the school impact fees, they aren't collecting fire impact fees, transportation impact fees, and as you know from the comprehensive plan discussion, there were a lot of county residents who want the city to fix its problems before growth occurs, but they don't quite discuss that. Where's their role in paying for those improvements? They want the city to fix it. And Exit 21 is a great example, because at some point, when we are told that we need to come up with $1 million, $2 or $2 million, $5 million, the expectation will be that they will be here to help support those dollars to fix Exit 21.
Expectation.
Both counties, Clark County, Cowlitz County. Yeah, so.
And federal government.
So that'll be a discussion that we have yet to have.
I'm with the government, I'm here to help.
Yes, that's why you hired me, right?
So I would like to reference before we, any more questions for Mr. Goddard on?
Which one of the little boxes on here is the one where they're calling them tiny homes? Because I saw the thing of, oh, look, we're going to put an RV park because it's going to be totally cool for the golfers, and then the tiny cottages, which are going to be totally what golfers want. I don't see golfers as being low-income people who would want a tiny home on the golf course.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but that's kind of the thing, is I'm just trying to understand what the idea that somebody's thrown out there.
So the more we work together, the more you will know that I immediately complicate things by asking questions that I don't have the answer for. But yes, it's entirely possible that all 250 units will end up as Airbnbs or weekend golfer rentals or bachelor party getaways for the weekend, and so there will be no students, there will be no housing opportunity, and they will only be rented, 2 days a week. In perpetuity. Yes.
Okay.
So that is entirely possible that will occur, and I'm Chicken Little saying the sky is going to fall because there will be no school impacts or fire impacts or police impacts.
Have you had a response from the county on any of this yet?
So again, I submitted in writing the expressing the city's concerns, and the actual applications have not been submitted at this point. Most of these are pre-application conferences and discussions about what's going to happen. But again, the county doesn't plan under GMA, so they're not obligated to necessarily take into account the same issues that we are. So for example, we couldn't do the annexation and approve an AHO subdivision like they've proposed without having them address parks and transportation and all of that. The county is under no obligation to do that unless it's in their code. And
But they can take the money.
yes.
And they can say Woodland can kick rocks and we're on our own for dealing with the mess that they created.
Yeah. So if this kind of development were to occur within the county, so while you were having your previous discussion and you were talking about new construction, so if the city were to build 250 homes, it would be worth about $131,000 in property tax increase per year. It would be $400,000 worth of fire impact fees to help pay off the fire station. School impact fees would be about $1.4 million to help pay off debt or to pay for expansions. About $400,000 would go to the Parks Department for park improvement and expansion, and $209,000 would go to our transportation system. So the irony, of course, being our biggest problem, which is transportation, and it's the least amount of money of everything that we deal with, and $200,000 won't buy you much. So
Has the school had a response to any of this? Do you know if the school,
Um,
because effectively our school system would be the ones taxed with housing all of these kids for a
So
couple hours.
I did forward to make sure that they're in the loop, because we are in concert, in lockstep agreement that they have the same concerns that we do. So I copied them on our letters, and the response from the school district was, yes, they are watching these closely and have the same concern.
So are they doing anything about it?
My assumption is that they will also make comments and express their concerns, but they have no more authority than we do.
Is it possible for you to, if there is a letter sent from the district, I'd be curious to see whether or not they're,
I can request.
if they are sending something to the county. Can the city be looped in on that communication?
Yep.
So it's important to point out, too, that we've requested before these pre-apps were brought to our attention, especially for the bottoms. I specifically requested that the county apply for a grant to assist in master planning of the bottoms itself. So we didn't run into, as we prepare for our next comprehensive plan update, that we would have the ability to use that as a tool moving forward into that area, or the natural progression of the city is going to grow that way. They declined to assist, and they declined to apply for the grant, even though we did offer to do the work. We just needed them to get us the money, and we'll do the work. And their response is 254 homes on half acres.
The Port of Woodland has also indicated that they would give $100,000 for master planning of the bottoms. And as far as I know, that there was no response in the affirmative or negative regarding that money.
We're attempting to take care of ourselves, but our partners at the county are not allowing us to do that.
I also would like to point out that when we were at the pre-application conference and raised these issues with AHO clearly stated that their first choice was to be part of the city and to work with us, and that's the process we went through in 2018, 2019, and this was definitely their Plan B, and that they would still be open to working with the city to extend city water and sewer if we could figure out a way to do that. And if there is a desire to have that discussion, I have a couple ideas of how we could approach that.
How would we fund it? We have no money.
Well, theoretically, they would do a lot of the construction, and the 250 additional ratepayers would mean that, because we already have a capital improvement planned for an additional 1 million gallon, is it a 1 million gallon storage facility?
Yeah, we can double our capacity.
So-
For sewer and water.
And that would be supported by the development fee, and the additional ratepayers would be paying the bill instead of having the current ratepayers be supporting the whole bill.
So
that
is
would-
it too late of looking into expanding the urban road boundary?
So-
Is that ship
I
sailed?
would say annex it.
Or annex, but I'm saying annex, I mean, is that ship sailed, or?
So, I think, so like I said, I think there are a couple strategies that we could look at. I don't know that we necessarily want to show our hands in the public before we have that discussion.
I say we just secede from both counties.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm just saying, become our own county.
Woodland County.
That's right.
Make us our own state.
Any more questions for Mr. Goddard on this wonderful topic of discussion?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Appreciate you. All right. We still have a little bit. Chair will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion.
Second. Somebody second that. Mr. Fredericks and Mr. Plaza, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 10:23.